For more, let's bring in Caitlin-Huey Burns from Capitol Hill and Skyler Henry at the Supreme Court. Caitlin is a CBS News political reporter, and Skyler is a Washington-based correspondent for CBS News. Skyler, you've been at the Supreme Court all day. We can see and hear some of the crowds there. What is the tone?
Hey, Nicole, good to see you. Well, hundreds, if not thousands, of protesters, demonstrators, activists all out here on both sides of this issue. We've seen a steady wave of people come in and out in front of the Supreme Court all day today, even from the wee hours this morning as they reacted to that leak that came out last night. As a matter of fact, Senator Elizabeth Warren is speaking to the group as we speak. Obviously, someone who is a big proponent of pro-choice. She and other Senate Democrats have obviously responded to what we've seen in this draft opinion, concerned about what it could mean in terms of a final opinion that we expect in the next few weeks. Certainly a lot of passion out here. We saw some heated exchanges earlier as well. Many people, I would say, for the most part, are pro-choice. We've seen some pro-life folks out here as well, but for the most part, we've seen the crowd out here double in the last hour, and I think that that is certainly something significant, as a lot of people are reacting to what this draft opinion could be. Now, again, as of now, this is still very early. In fact, the Supreme Court released a statement earlier today. Chief Justice John Roberts, in fact, expressing his concerns about the draft opinion, going on to say that this is not the final opinion of the court. But a lot of skeptics out there are saying, because of the court's conservative majority, that this could very well be what we see in that final opinion. And so I think we're seeing a lot of lawmakers, a lot of activists concerned about what could be coming in the next few weeks as they wait and see how the Supreme Court responds.
And Skyler, we also heard from President Biden today. What's his reaction to this leaked brief?
That's right. Well, he certainly sort of walked a fine line, if you will, not jumping to conclusions in terms of this being a final decision, but he also called this something that is quite a radical decision and would change American jurisprudence certainly significantly. And it's something to say that 70% of Americans are for Roe v. Wade. And I think that is reflected out here today as we see the amount of people that have been coming out here to show their support. The president obviously concerned about what this could be. He said that this is why he tried so hard to prevent Robert Bork from sitting on the Supreme Court because of an issue like this. And now, given the fact that we're seeing this conservative majority, at least from this February leaked document, certainly consider overturning Roe v. Wade, he's concerned by it. We know that Senate Democrats want to consider some sort of codification of Roe v. Wade, but that'll be interesting in and of itself, because we don't even know if Democrats have 50 votes to do so. Remember, Joe Manchin voted against this the last time that this came up. And so will Democrats have enough support in order to get something passed, especially as we wait and see what the Supreme Court decides?
Caitlin, Republicans have really been focusing on the timing of the leak, though we don't know yet who's responsible. Here's Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell summing up that sentiment on the Senate floor.
Somebody, likely somebody inside the court itself, leaked a confidential internal draft to the press, almost certainly in an effort to stir up an inappropriate pressure campaign to sway an outcome. The radical left immediately rallied around the toxic stunt. The cheerleaders for partisan court packing applauded. What they suggested was the work of, quote, a brave clerk.
What are other Republicans you talked to on the Hill saying?
Hey, Nicole. Well, it's a really fascinating dynamic up here on Capitol Hill because, remember, Republicans have been trying to overturn Roe v. Wade for decades. And you would think that this leaked draft of an opinion that would overturn Roe v. Wade would be something celebrated up here on Capitol Hill by Republicans who have been so eager and have rallied in election after election around the issue of abortion. But interestingly enough, Republicans led by Mitch McConnell were instead focused on the process. They were focused on the leaks. At his weekly presser today with Republican leadership, McConnell said that the story is about the leaks. And it was very notable that neither he nor any of the other Republican leaders took anything like a victory lap. And you know those press conferences on Tuesdays are a way for Republicans to set their message messaging agenda for the week. You would imagine that they would go to that podium and celebrate this news, but in fact, they were just very much focused on the process. So I've been asking Republican lawmakers up here, why that is, and they say, look, it's early. We are waiting for the actual draft, the actual final version. This is just a draft, but it does also signal that Republicans could sense some political liabilities here of their own. Our own polling shows that a vast majority, upwards of 62% of Americans, want to or favor keeping Roe v. Wade in place. So this is a situation where, there is a question of whether the politics could in fact backfire against Republicans. Democrats have been trying to make that argument up here, saying that this is a moment where the dog has been chasing its tail and finally caught up with it.
Well, Skyler, on the other side of the aisle, you mentioned Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren is there speaking at the high court. She isn't happy with Republicans. She says she's angry, upset, and determined, and she wasn't done there.
This is what the Republicans have been working toward this day for decades. They have been out there plotting, carefully cultivating these Supreme Court justices so they could have a majority on the bench who would accomplish something that the majority of Americans do not want.
Obviously, she's very worked up there, but is that sentiment similar to what you're seeing at the court today?
Well, Nicole, I think if you were to take a sample size of what this group is, I think that may be a reflection of how a lot of people across the country feel. The senator was out here a few moments ago explaining how she was upset about what this draft opinion could be. We also heard from Senator Amy Klobuchar, who is out here as well, echoing those sentiments. And I think it'll be interesting to see what this means down the line, especially, once the final opinion comes out. Obviously, there's a lot of passionate folks out here wanting to make sure that their rights are kept. But then also, to Caitlin's point, what does this mean politically, especially as we look ahead to the midterms? This is certainly going to be a hot-button issue. We've seen a lot of governors, a lot of state senators across the country come out to say where they stand on this issue, some saying that they are going to protect abortion rights. Obviously, as many think that this should be a state's issue, and so a lot of governors even have said that they are going to try to protect those rights as much as possible. But I also think that it'll be interesting to see what this means for those swing states. Georgia, for example, where we know that it's a purple state, but also one where abortion's rights are certainly a hotly contested topic. And so I think that is something that we will see on the campaign trail, especially as we look ahead in these primaries and all of the things like that. And so I think that that could, as Caitlin referred to, be not really the greatest thing for Republicans. And so I think that will be something to look forward to as we see what happens in the next few weeks and months.
And Caitlin, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders is already calling for Democrats to use their congressional majorities to make Roe versus Wade into law. What are you hearing about those efforts?
Yeah, and I caught up with Bernie Sanders earlier today, who has been pushing for the abolition of the filibuster. And you've heard that among a lot of Democratic lawmakers up here. They want to abolish the filibuster in order to pass or to codify abortion rights into law. But let's do a bit of a reality check here. You all know that there are not the votes among Democrats even to abolish the filibuster for anything, let alone abortion rights. Skyler mentioned that Joe Manchin is one who has been voting with Republicans on the issue of abortion. Just in February, Chuck Schumer brought to the floor a bill to codify Roe v. Wade into law with additional conditions. Manchin voted with Republicans against bringing that up for a debate, so it wasn't even able to pass a filibuster. Democrats up here, led by Chuck Schumer, say that they are going to bring that bill to the floor again. But that is also likely, again, headed for defeat unless they can coalesce Democrats around the bill. Now, Chuck Schumer told us earlier today that he believes that now that the overturning of Roe v. Wade is no longer a hypothetical, given the draft opinion here. This is very much a reality that he says, in his words, that could change the dynamic. That's something that we'll wait and see. But again, there aren't enough votes to override to abolish the filibuster, and there aren't enough votes at this point to codify Roe v. Wade into law. But a couple of points to consider. Some Republicans Lisa Murkowski and Senator Susan Collins are two that have introduced legislation to sign Roe v. Wade into law, just a straightforward kind of legislation. So we'll see if that somehow gets woven into the language that Schumer intends to bring up later today. But there are Democratic divisions up here, and so even if they want to, they don't really have the recourse to do so. And so that again raises the question of whether this becomes the galvanizing midterm election issue. You've heard Democrats up here on Capitol Hill and at the various Democratic committees across town saying that this is an issue that is reshaping the midterm elections.
And certainly one that will continue to play out until then and beyond. Caitlin-Huey Burns and Skyler Henry, thank you.